Chick-fil-A is an interesting topic. They are the number one fast food chicken restaurant out there, and as of now, the third biggest restaurant chain in the US by system-wide sales, with $12.2 billion in 2019, only behind Starbucks and McDonald's. The fact that they are closed on Sundays and have way less restaurants compared to others makes them uniquely successful. I mean, look at this. How are they able to pull in more revenue with that many restaurants? Well, if you take a look at their average revenue per store, with 2,493 as of December 31, 2019, they're at $4.9 million per store, compared to McDonald's, who makes about $2.8 million, or Starbucks at $1.4 million. Chick-fil-A is something else. You've probably heard about how friendly the employees are, or maybe you had experience it yourself. Chick-fil-A is well known for having a great service. They have claimed the number one spot on American Customer Satisfaction Index annual report for the fourth time in a row, earning 86 out of 100 points from the last report. In this video, I will try to explain why they're successful and what is it that makes them different from others. I think we all agree that the reason why is because they provide a quality product, and with a quality service, this will equal success. It sounds simple, right? But there's more to cover. I'll start by giving a bit of history about how they started in the first place. In 1946, 25-year-old Truett Cathy, along with his younger brother Ben, opened a tiny diner called the Dorf Grill, which later was renamed to the Dorf House, in Hateville, Georgia. It was a 24-hour restaurant where they worked together, switching 12-hour shifts and closed on Sundays, leaving the day off to rest as a devoted Christian. At the time, World War II just ended and opening a new store was difficult, primarily because there wasn't enough supplies or resources out there. So them, like any other company at the time, had to adapt to the scarcity environment. But they were able to get through, and the restaurant was doing alright. Unfortunately, just 3 years later, Ben passed away in a plane crash along with his other brother Horace. And now, Truett was on his own to run the business. In 1951, he opened a second restaurant in the nearby town of Forest Park, and for 9 years everything seemed going as planned. But then suddenly that new restaurant caught on fire, and the insurance wasn't good enough to rebuild the restaurant. With these tragedies, Cathy felt it was time for something new. He was aware of the fast food restaurants. At the time, it was something new and he could see the upcoming wave in food services. He started to experiment ways to make chicken a viable fast food item. The problem was that the chicken meat took so long to cook, and as a fast food game, it needed to be quick. He found a solution by his mother's way of cooking, using a pressure cooker, and after testing many ways with the chicken seasonings and how to serve it, he created the chicken sandwich in 1964. Back then, only beef hamburgers were selling at the fast food restaurants, and this was something new. It quickly outsold hamburgers in the Dorf House menu, and Cathy could see potential in these chicken sandwiches. So he decided to open a new restaurant primarily focused around them. In 1967, he opened the first Chick-fil-A restaurant in Greenbrier Mall in Atlanta, Georgia. He came up with the name using the word chicken and filet, making them shorter, and used the letter A to carry the concept of having a great A, like being the best or first. Shopping malls were still not a big thing as they are now, and at the time, people would usually come to the malls to shop and go elsewhere to eat because food courts were not seen very often there. Cathy saw this as an opportunity to reach customers, so over the next decade he was opening food courts all over the malls, and as malls grew, so did Chick-fil-A. He still had the same policy of being closed on Sundays, to set aside one day a week for him and his employees to rest and worship if they choose. They had these 4 basic principles since the beginning. Number 1, the company would grow not by selling franchises but by forming joint ventures with independent operators. Number 2, they would operate only in shopping malls. Number 3, financing would come not through debt but from the company's own profit. And number 4, people would be the main focus of Chick-fil-A. All these are still to this place today except for number 2, which had to be changed as food courts and shopping malls became very saturated in the 1980s. Even though Chick-fil-A was expanding quickly out through the 1970s at malls, its unique product catch the attention to its competitors, and soon after they started marketing their own Chick-fil-A sandwiches. The response of Chick-fil-A? Putting coupons on the newspaper all over the country to bring more people, which turned out to be twice as much as the response rate they were expecting, leading to heavy losses. They were also having some issues at the time with construction delays and inflation, and it seemed like they were heading to a rough spot. So in 1982, Truett Cathy made a meeting of the chain executive committees. His son Dan was there, and he asked these 3 questions to the group members. Why are we in business? Why are we here? Why are we alive? All the committee members were Christians, so it wasn't long before the discussion came to focus on matters of faith. In Cathy's words, he later said, "We all agree in the important role Jesus Christ played in our own lives, but none of us liked the idea of parading around our religious faith. We sought then to create a statement of our corporate purpose, not to press our beliefs onto others, but rather to influence others in our organizations by the example we set on our lifestyle and by the way we treat people." By the end of the meeting, their new corporate purpose was stated: to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us, to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. That meeting was a defining moment for the company because since then, they would encounter success after success. Until then, Chick-fil-A was heavily reliant on word of mouth, so they started to push more on advertising, with the slogan "First and Best," aiming to remind the public they were the one who created the chicken sandwich. They also influenced their operators to stand behind these three key aspects: quality, service, and cleanliness. That same year, the company would also introduce a new product, chicken nuggets, which went so well that even big competitors such as McDonald's would add it to their menu. Within 6 months, their sales were increasing by 40%. They were expanding pretty well, and by 1986, Chick-fil-A opened their first restaurant outside of malls. They kept diversifying their menus along the way, but chicken was still their main focus, and by 1993, they reached 500 restaurants in total. 1995 was another big year for the company. They launched their Eat More Chicken advertisement campaign, which was really recognized from the billboards. They featured cows on them, encouraging people to eat more chicken instead of beef. It caused a lot of attention, and it was so successful that they went from having $500,000 that year to $1 billion by 2000. That same year, they also rose to third place of fast food sales in the chicken category, behind Popeyes and KFC. Truett Cathy and his children then signed an agreement promising the company will never go public. Since then, they've been increasing sales dramatically each year by over 10%. Now, 20 years later, they're making $12.2 billion, and it seems like it's not stopping. Here's a chart I put in together where you can track how fast they're growing from the past decade. In 2009, they were at $3.2 billion in system-wide sales, meaning by now, they have almost quadrupled. In July of 2012, though, Chick-fil-A got itself in a controversy when the CEO Dan publicly shared his thoughts about same-sex marriage. They received a lot of backlash from it, and despite hurting the brand, they were still growing and improving their sales. They finalized that year with $4.6 billion in revenue, making a 12% increase from the $4 billion the previous year. They also grew 7.4% in average sales per store, and still, to this day, those sales per store are still increasing. Now, one of the reasons why Chick-fil-A has been growing a lot recently is because of the chicken sandwich itself. It's on the rise. Beef hamburgers have been dominating in the fast food industry for so long since the beginning that in the past decade, people might just seem to have enough of it and are heading to the chicken sandwich instead. In fact, 1991 was the last year people ate more beef than chicken in terms of overall consumption. Now, I'm not saying beef hamburgers are dead. They still play a big role, but they have been remaining steady for a while now, while chicken sandwiches have been growing a lot recently. And because Chick-fil-A is mainly focused around them, the trend has pushed them to the top. Even McDonald's franchisees owners from the US asked the company to add chicken sandwiches similar to the Chick-fil-A one to their menu, so they can try to keep up. Between 2009 and 2018, Chick-fil-A went from owning 19.3% of the chicken fast food market to 38.5%. Popeyes might just be the only one challenging Chick-fil-A from this market share after introducing their new chicken sandwich from last year, which went pretty well that they even ran out of it after 2 weeks of its release and brought it back 2 months later. Okay, I want to talk about their franchise, because the way they do business is very different from others, and I feel like this could be the main reason why they're successful. In America, we all know that most fast food restaurants aren't owned by the corporation itself, but by franchises. These are a party or individuals who pay the rights to use a brand name. These franchisees, or the people who bought the rights, put their own money to build or develop new restaurants, which might be costing them around $1 or $2 million in average. It really just depends on the location where it opens. For example, it will be more expensive to open one in a major city like LA compared to a small southern town. Once everything is paid and the restaurant is all set up, the average fast food company would charge anywhere from 4 to 6% of total sales. The rest goes to the franchisee, which should cover all their costs, and whatever left is their profit, which is not a lot compared to the total revenue. The key here is to own multiple franchises so you can see some serious income coming in. Here's a chart I put in to give you a good point of view how much you would be spending on a franchise plus the royalty fees or whatever is paid back to the company yearly. As you can see, it can get expensive with startup costs, except for Subway. With Chick-fil-A, if you want to do a franchise with them, you will only have to put $10,000 of your own money. All the rest is paid by the company. I know, you don't need to be wealthy, but in return, Chick-fil-A commands 15% of total sales plus 50% of total profit, which is way higher than the average royalty fee in a franchise. I mean, they basically own the restaurant since they pay for everything, so it kind of makes sense. Even though Chick-fil-A franchise may not be pricey, they're very selective. It's not that easy to land on the job. It is said that the company has the lowest acceptance rate in the industry. Last year, Chick-fil-A received roughly 68,000 franchise applications and accepted only around 100 of them, making it a 0.15% acceptance rate. Not only that, but Chick-fil-A franchise operators goes through a tough process that will usually take months. An operator in Atlanta said he had to complete 10 interviews, write 12 essays, and even provide a copy of his high school transcripts. Once he was selected, he went to an extensive multi-week training program, covering everything from education to employment law. Instead of wealthy people, Chick-fil-A aimed to find people that are willing to be highly involved in day-to-day operations. They choose only the best people to run the business, people that believe in the brand and are closely connected with the community. The fortunate ones that are chosen are in most cases only allowed to operate one restaurant. Another of the Chick-fil-A regulations includes that franchise operators can't have other jobs or businesses besides the franchise, and they don't have the rights to sell it. With these standards, they're more likely to be focused on the restaurants since it's the only thing they have going on. They're motivated to make it better and profitable, and Chick-fil-A end up producing good results overall, from customer satisfaction to higher sales per store. At this point, the franchisees are really not doing a franchise. They're basically working as a traditional management job, but with a commission salary. If you wonder how much they're making, it's estimated to be around $200,000 and up per year.
You make a lot of money. Yeah, I do all right for myself.
Remember the corporate purpose? To glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us, to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. The model of the business is built around it. They set up the system where the franchisees are putting more effort into the restaurant. They're inside the stores every single day interacting with people. Customers feel well taken care of and they'll come back again. Even though they have a good foundation of a business, I wonder if they can still remain that way once they expand at a higher scale. They are mainly focused on the US by now, but are looking to expand internationally. They have recently opened restaurants in Toronto, Canada, and a temporary one in the UK. And they just need to make sure their management system is still in place to maintain that same level of quality and customer service. What do you think? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments. I would like to see what you have to say. Thanks for watching.